with us. We have Cub Scout Pack 73. So I want to welcome all of you to our meeting tonight. Thank you so much for coming. And we're going to ask you to lead the Pledge of Allegiance after the prayer, if you would, for us, please.
Heavenly Father, thank you once again for the ability to come here and meet. Lord, I pray that we would do your will in everything that we say, and think, and do, Lord. Jesus, we know that we exist to be a pleasure for you, Lord. Let us do that in everything we do. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And would you guys come down, just come down to the front at the front of the podium here. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Okay. Alderman Wheeler, welcome. Okay, first on the agenda this evening is approval of minutes for the September 1, 2020 meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 1st, 2020 with any additions, deletions, or corrections. Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Newt.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Clifford.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Okay, next on our agenda is we're going to introduce new police officers. Chief Moore, if you would come up and bring everyone in.
Line up across from me. Mary Moore, we got, some of these guys started 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, some of them started Monday. I want to introduce y'all to them. It's Alderman Christian Kelly, Ward 1, Alderman Charlie Hood, Ward 2, Alderman George Payne, Ward 3, William Brooks is Alderman at Large, Alderman Joel Gallagher, Ward 4, John Wheeler, he's known operating officer.
Yes.
And Alderman Raymond Flores, Ward 6. Mayor Russell White, city attorney, city clerk. And I'll start over here. Anthony Beeman, Leroy Dorsey, Roger Garner, Titus Hawkins, Denzel Henry, Dylan Hudson, Derek Kittle, Ryan Corum, Benny McCall, Brandon Smith, and Deontay Young. And we've got one Timothy Billington who's going to be here. So if y'all got 2 words.
Outstanding. I just have a few words. First, I want to tell you that welcome to our team in the City of Southaven. That's impressive right there for all you guys to join our team. I want you to know how much we appreciate you joining our team and all that you'll do for our city to keep us safe. And then I'm going to keep it short, but I want to say one other thing to you. I want you to listen to me carefully. When you go home and watch the news, if you watch the news tonight, what you see going on around the rest of the United States, that's not going to happen in Southaven, Mississippi, okay? So you need to know that when you do your job, if you do your job, that I know I'm speaking for the board, but I'm speaking for me too. If you do your job, I will always have your back, and there will never be one time that anybody tells you not to do your job, okay? So you need to know that the City of Southaven supports you, your mayor supports you, your board supports you. I'm with you, okay? If there's anything that you need me to do, I will stand out there with you. But what's happening in our country is unacceptable, and it's not going to happen in the City of Southaven, Mississippi. Thank y'all. Very nice to meet you. Okay, next on our agenda is resolution for ordinance adopting the 2018 building code. As y'all know, we've had two special hearings, one earlier this year, and another one a few weeks back. And what we did is just brought the Home Builders Association in to discuss it with the board, with our chief building official, with everyone, to make sure that, you know, we vetted that, make sure that that it's something that fits Southaven appropriately, but also makes our homes safer. And I believe we came to an agreement with everything, with the exception of one issue. But would somebody make a motion just to open up the floor for this? Alderman Flores makes a motion, Alderman Gallagher second. And then the only issue I think that we left hanging was the minimum square footage under roof that we were going to require sprinkler system in residential homes. And we left it that day with either 6,500 or 6,000. So,
I thought it was 65. I did too. I know
That's what-
it was January 1st. I remember that. I thought we needed to be able to 65.
right, but we didn't take action that day.
Oh, we didn't take, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So is that your recommendation?
My recommendation is 65.
Okay. Okay, so we'll just make we'll do a second motion just to make sure we clarify that. We have a motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Hoots, to make 6,500 under roof the minimum requirement for a sprinkler system in a residential home. So with the first and a second, is there any other discussion about that? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Rush.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
And that motion carries. So, and then the floor is still open on the initial motion. Is there any other discussion? Does anybody have anything else about the bill?
Mayor, real quick, I wasn't able to attend that meeting, but what was, I know we had a public hearing with the builders. What kind of pushback, was there any kind of input that they've given that was concerned or with the building?
Well, the main things that were discussed back in February that we had a follow-up on was very little discussion about most of it, but wind and seismic was a big issue. And we listed James Gentry. I asked James Gentry to go back and simplify what's in the building code and to put it in a one-page handout that makes it simple for the builders. Like you have to do 1 through 8, you know, to make the home wind and seismic safe. And so they all agreed on that. They said they had no problems with that. You know, basically what it comes down to is making sure that the foundation is that the framing is tied to the foundation tight. Also the walls tied together, walls tied to the foundation, and roof tied to the walls. So there was a list of 8 things that were in there. There will be a handout just to make it easy for the builders to understand what they've got to do, you know, to make the homes more wind and seismic safe. And then the rest of the stuff, besides this sprinkler thing, there was not, the only other thing that was a little bit concerned was the wall shearing and having to go back and take out windows and things like that. And we all agreed with the second meeting that we didn't feel like the home plans would have to be changed that much. Like you wouldn't have to go back, have the whole thing redone, it would just be an amendment, so that really wasn't an issue. And then the last thing was about the plans. Like in the past, really years ago, someone would go get one plan, and then they would just make photocopies of that plan. Like every time they built, this is people that build the same floor plan over and over. And so those plans are old. They're obviously way before wind and seismic. So we did make a requirement now where those plans have to be adjusted, which we believe they can go back and get one page added to them, but they all have to have a wind and seismic plan. So, but we went back over that with them again in the second meeting. Everybody understands that. It's not a large amount of money. And so we left it by asking them again, are there any concerns about anything? And they all said they're good. So we closed the meeting and moved forward. So like I said, the only thing that we left dangling was the square footage number, unless I misunderstood it. Can y'all think of anything else or anything else?
About $1.15 square foot to do the size.
Yes.
So really affordable.
And some of the things, Alderman Payne, the feedback we got, the builders told us that they were already doing a lot of these things anyway. So we don't feel like it's going to be a huge change. It's just mainly making the communication clear, while they're out in the field.
Because other cities in the county have already adopted it.
Some have already, yeah, they have.
So it's just easier for them to adopt the same standard.
Right.
The building.
Right, and there is a little bit of variation. The biggest issue, and we felt strongly about this on the change of the sprinkler requirement to under roof. The big issue there was our previous ordinance, which say living space. And now there's a real popular thing for a lot of people to build living space that's not heated and cooled with these outdoor kitchens, huge garages, things like that. So what we were having is we had some people that were kind of working the system a little bit. They're going and building a home that's 4,999 feet, and then it's got to expand on 2,000. And they would just wait until after they got the home built and then come back later and add that. So that way we are eliminating any kind of argument on site. So whether it's heated and cooled, doesn't matter. Anything under roof, it's 6,500, it has to be sprinkled. And we did agree too that in Southaven that most homes are not 6,500 square feet, but that if someone is either building or buying a 6,500 square foot house, that the cost of a sprinkler system is very minor. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hughes.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. And then the next thing on the agenda is, goes along with the building code. You got to adopt the fire code as well. There was no other issues or questions related to that I was aware of, but is there a motion to adopt the fire code?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution, Mayor Board of Aldermen, City of Southaven, to amend the City of Southaven Code of Ordinances. Yeah, Title 5, Chapter 2, Section 5-26, 5-31, 5-60, and 5-76 is presented on this date.
Second.
We have a motion from Alderman Brooks, second from Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hughes.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is our engineer construction change order authorization. Mr. Dan Cordell.
The turf project, I don't know if you've already been out there and looked at it lately, but it's coming along well. They're moving fast. We have a few items that need to be adjusted, so I'm requesting an approval for a 1% construction field order allowance to pin some of these changes down before I come back and finalize with a true change order. It's allowed by state law, so I'm requesting y'all's approval to give me that adjustment ability while we're pinning down some of the items. They are. Bullpens are one item that was not in the plans. They're working adjacent to the areas. There's 2 bullpens per, basically per complex, per area where you practice. We need to tie those in. It doesn't sound like a lot, but they're somewhere around $15,000 to $20,000 a piece. We already have some adjustment in the contract, so we need this allowance. I don't think it'll be at the max. It's around $55,833.10 is the 1%. I think I'll be below that, but while they're finalizing their numbers, I don't want to leave one of the areas and not do a bullpen while we're trying to get approved. So I'm asking if you don't approve to provide that allowance.
Okay, we got a motion from Alderman Flores, second from Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion?
Is that bullpens for all?
Yeah. And basically just,
There are 8 current bullpens,
Right.
and we're basically doing all of them in charge.
all right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. And the next on the agenda is a contract renewal of civil link. And then on that, Dan, is there anything changing? Is that just a time? Is there anything?
Yes, sir. I want to warn y'all up with a change order. This is strictly, this contract runs with the budget, y'all see the budget. And so it expires at the end of September, and this is a request for renewal, no changes to the contract.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler. Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a resolution for sanitation assessment.
Mr. Mayor, we adopt a resolution for assessing unpaid sanitation fees as presented on the state.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution for Parks Department surplus and transfer of assets. Mr. Nick Manley.
This resolution just surpluses and/or transfers the equipment that we're being used for the infield, since we do not have, since we having turf. The surplus will be done in accordance with 172525, and the transfer will be done to other governmental entities such as the school district, I think Lewisburg, Center Central, the city of Southaven, and Southaven High School for the actual equipment.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler. Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution for liens to assessments.
This resolution will authorize those properties that have been condemned for 21/19/11. We filed liens on, or we haven't filed liens on, now to be converted over to assessment to the tax assessor. That way, when the taxes come due, the lien we pay to the city or the local property taxes.
Mr. Mayor, we adopt a resolution under one law for the city of Southaven, adjudicating the costs of city property, imposing a penalty and imposing assessment of the same against property presented on the state. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Hoots. Is there any discussion among the board? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that has a financial interest in any of the properties that would like to speak? Hearing or seeing none, roll call please.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution to claim private property.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution granting authority to claim private property presented on the state. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion among the board?
Property that we had cut last night, did you cut last Friday?
Austin?
Yes, sir.
You hear the question? He says yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion among the board? Is there anyone in the audience that has a financial interest in any of the properties that would like to speak? Hearing or seeing none, roll call please.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoots.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Next on the agenda is a change order for the Springfest parking lot improvements. Ms. Whitney Cook.
Yes, sir, this is change order number 3. It is, as the Mayor said, Springfest parking lot improvements. You will see on there some decreases in the contract price and some increases in the contract price. It ends up being a net change of $2,031.61, and that basically evens out where we're doing the Springfest logo in the center. It's actually ongoing right now, it looks great. But to get the full effect of what we wanted there, we had to add additional colors into it. So the net change you have there is the increase for that improvement to be done. So we're asking for approval of that tonight.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Alderman Gray.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hoops.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler. Alderman Flores.
Yes.
Yeah, that motion carries. Next on the agenda is the proposed ordinance change summary. We're not asking for board action tonight, but we recently had an ordinance committee meeting. The purpose of it was not to do anything monumental. There were a lot of miscellaneous things in our ordinances that was causing confusion out in the field. And so based on our code enforcement supervisor, along with Whitney Cook, we did go back and make some small amendments to that. And Whitney did a good job of summarizing a very, very long meeting. It was about a 2.5-hour meeting, but she summarized it. So would you walk us through it, Whitney?
Sure. And it's pretty easy to read. You got your existing ordinance, and what I did for the proposed ordinance section was just bolded the words that were going to be changed. For the first one, basically we wanted to simplify the clarification of what the infamous 2-ton commercial rated vehicles is set to be. So what you have in the ordinance now is rated 2 tons or more. It goes in a school bus trailer exceeding 15 feet in length. What we have added now is vehicles other than private passenger automobiles having a gross weight of 8,000 pounds and the capacity to haul commercial products or passengers. And then we also increase the size of the trailer, the actual bed. So a 20-foot trailer is allowable as opposed to a 15-foot one because it's kind of an odd length. A lot of them are 16 foot or more. But what that does, in conversations, we wanted to make sure that if somebody had a really large F-350 or a larger truck that's for personal use, we wanted to exclude those. So if this does do that, and it puts an overall weight for the vehicle, and that was the clearest way we could do it. Other ordinances had that adjusted in theirs. The second change that you see below there, we just added some information in there, trailers of all kinds.
Excuse me, if we can, just so we can move forward, let's do one at a time. Is that okay with y'all? We just do one at a time and see if there's any discussion. That way we're not jumping all over the map. So is there any discussion about the first proposal? Okay, let's just do it like that. Let's just do one, make sure everybody's, see if anybody has any extra input or concerns,
Okay.
and then we'll move on to the next one.
All right, the second one, we were adding something in. A problem with code enforcement has been people are parking their trailers, empty trailers, loaded trailers, what have you, in the street. Our existing ordinance stated recreational equipment, boats, boat trailers, travel trailers, campers, or other similar items. It did not address your standard pull behind the truck trailers, and that's been an issue. So what you see in bold on proposed ordinances is trailers of all kinds. And that kind of captures everything. That's the only change in that one. So if you have any questions, we can.
I've got one thing, it says, they can't, trailer RVs can't be parked. I know a lot of people they have their RVs at a storage lot or something like that, and they bring them to their house, and they park them in front of the house, they load stuff up and that kind of thing. I kind of got, can we do something with that to make it where it's can't be there more than 24 hours?
Well, it's in the
I
street,
know the
it's usually marked. Police, the rule of thumb is police have a 48-hour rule of things parked in the street. Code enforcement tries to help out with that because the police have got other things they need to be doing, so we help on that. It's a 48-hour rule. RVs, though, you can actually park them at your home so long as you're a certain distance from the street and the sidewalk. So if they're just coming to load and it's a day, it's not going to be an issue for anybody. If they want to come and park at their house and they have an extended driveway and they have the length, they can leave it there indefinitely as long as it's on a hard surface. So I think that should address your concern.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, so this next one is about the garbage carts. Right now in our ordinance, it says that the carts cannot remain in public, or must remain out of public view at any time unless it's between the hours of your garbage can being emptied. What we decided to do, and it was a heavy discussion on this, because if it's out of public view can be, if you're in a corner lot, you have panoramic view almost everybody's house. So we felt like getting a little bit more definitive on where they can place it would be better. So the proposed wording is to be located in front of the primary structure building line at any time other than between those hours. So basically, your building line is where your house front can sit. So it cannot be in front of the primary structure, which is going to be your building line. at any point in time unless it's during pickup hours. That way they can't leave it in the middle of the driveway, they can't leave it for an extended amount of time down the curb. And it doesn't, for houses that are like zero lot lines, it's very hard to address screening it on the side or the rear. So this gave a little bit more leniency there, but it still requires you to be behind the front building line. So that was the proposal for this one.
I've got one more thing, and I'll tell you. I found a neat service, you know, they come by and they clean your garbage cans and stuff, but they come the next day. They don't come the same day you get your pickup because, you know, they can't coordinate. So then once you leave it, just leave it there, and then when they clean it, they put them back into your house when they get through with it. But they come the very next day, like Mondays, they couldn't clean the cans on Tuesday. I mean, it's great. I mean, I love the idea of it because it's making things better.
Is there any way they could come up to your, I guess my concern with that one would be people would use that situation, you know, thought they were coming, or if maybe they got behind and they ended up being on a 2-day lapse or a 3-day lapse or something like that. That would be my only concern. And then you have other people that may not use that actual company or maybe don't get theirs cleaned, and they're your neighbors, they're upset because your garbage can's sitting out there. It may cause a domino effect for your neighbors. So, I mean, that would be my thought. I mean, I'm open to whatever. I've got the ordinances here, so.
I think it's a service. They're the ones getting on the service, they're the ones who take it back out of the street. Right. Simple as that.
I didn't know what you said.
It's a service. You're scheduling a service. And then you roll it back out the street, you go roll it back on the ground.
Well, just one thing,
We're gonna have garbage cans out on the street. Just can't do it.
Right. well, this change, as Whitney stated, this change is making it actually more lenient. That way, like if the services come the next day, the homeowner could move their cart down to the building line where they can see it from the streets. All they would do is just walk there and pull it down there. So, whereas before, we were requiring that it had to be hidden. So the fact that we're changing this ordinance is making
Should
it much
actually help
easier.
it somewhat.
Where they can, if the service pulls up, they can see the cart, you know, right there, or the homeowner could move it a little bit up to make sure they can see it. That way they could, you know, just, you know, walk up and pull it down there.
And I guess from my side, are they cleaning it in city right of way, or are they cleaning it on their property?
They actually have a truck that's designed that pulls up there and it raises the can up and washes the inside of it out. You know, it's got its own storage tanks and that kind of stuff, and sanitizes it. Looks like a brand new can when they get through with it. You know, and they come by once a month. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 services, there's 2 or 3 services in the Southern County that are actually doing it.
But they don't dump the can like.
No, it's gotta be, you know, the problem was they were trying to do it the same day, and, you know, some days the guy gets by there at 11, and some days he gets by there at 12:30. You know, so they were, you know, they had to move it to the next day because that way they can guarantee the cans are empty so they can clean it.
I think if you just let them know, you know, that the new ordinance or proposed ordinance will allow it to be in view, just behind the building line where they can see it, and then the homeowner could move it up to the building line if they normally store it somewhere else. That way this service can see the car, they can just like pull it down real quick. But I'm like everybody else, like Alderman Flores, if you do that, if you change it, then you're dealing with, all somebody's got to say was, well, I'm having my car cleaned. Well, what day? Well, I don't know. Today, tomorrow, so then your neighbors are going to be like, hey, they've had the cart down there for 5 days, and then we say, yes, they're having it cleaned. Well, it's been there for 5 days, you know. It's just going to, I would just tell you that would become a nightmare, just based on the practicality of what we're doing.
Personally, I think that's too lenient.
You mean, and we did talk about requiring it to be screened, and we hope that people will continue to do that, either, because it doesn't take a whole lot of money just to, you know, plant a little bush or something, you know, to hide it. But we felt like it could cause a hardship. Alderman Kelly brought up a good point that right now lumber costs are high. If somebody was wanting to build a little fence, you know, it may be creating a hardship. So we're taking a very lenient route.
They are. I mean, I need to, the kid needs to figure out that, right?
Yeah. And it is, if somebody leaves their car, it's just, I can tell you a lot of citizens call about that. They don't like that.
Yeah. Next one.
Unless y'all want, I hope that you won't, but if you want to make a motion.
No,
to
I
change that.
just threw it out there, I mean.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't know there was such a service. So, yeah, mine needs.
Nick's probably
Yeah, I
looking
need
up
that.
right now.
All right, so we're good to move on?
Yes, the next one came up when we were discussing pods for homes, temporary storage. And apparently, through code enforcement and through our building department, there's been a lot of contractors storing stuff on construction sites, indefinitely. Construction sites can last anywhere between 30 days and 5 years. That was not the intent for them to have permanent storage on these sites. We do allow them to have an office trailer, but nothing beyond that. It didn't specify that in the existing one. It just simply talked about temporary buildings, which could be a pod type structure or an office. So what we wanted to do is define that more. One, define it as a temporary office building may be located there, up to 1 year, which is not changing the time frame, but it's also saying temporary storage buildings shall not be permissible on construction sites. So storage buildings cannot be there, but it does allow for commercial dumpsters. They get dumped continuously. That's not going to be considered one of these, and the office is still allowed. So I have not seen a whole lot of it happening, but according to code enforcement, there are some issues there, and what we don't want is to have a residential neighborhood sitting there, and then on one vacant lot, we got a permanent storage facility there for 2 years at a time. So it's not our intent for them to leave materials and equipment on site that they can't just pick up and take to their contractors and subcontractors. So that was that change.
Sounds good.
All right.
We'll move on.
Back to the residential. Right now, I'm sure some of the aldermen will remember back when pods came out, they advertised that they'll take your stuff, they'll come back, pick it up, store it in the facility. Well, that's not what's happening. They're staying on sites. So at that point in time, we did a 48-hour rule, just so, if you got things you need to get in there, you had a weekend to do it, what have you. We have found over the years that there may be some situations where 48 hours is just not enough time. If you're remodeling, if you got, something to that effect. So the proposal is to extend that to a 14-day period. And we have been very flexible when they call, and if they'll show us documentation for invoices where they ordered stuff or they're doing repairs, we've extended it, but I think 2 weeks would capture most of the issues, so. You don't want to
That's a long. It's okay.
I think somebody else had thrown out 10 days.
There are those in the room that agree with you.
Well, right now it's 48 hours. I think we discussed 10 days, and then 14 days tended to be the final number. But I mean, there's no magic number.
I think 14 days allows them.
Well, I was thinking, I've got friends who, when they move, they'll actually do the pod.
Well,
And then slowly throughout the
And
week
that's-
start putting stuff.
we talked too about people who have a closing coming up, and then their closing falls through, and then, it may be rescheduled again on down the line a little bit. So that was the thought behind us giving 14 days.
But the closing fall through are already looked at. Yeah, so the spots and they got their.
Well, I guess my other thing is Pods advertises that they will pick your stuff up and put it in a safe facility, but that's not what's happening. It's either extra cost or maybe Pods doesn't offer it anymore, but that's what they marketed it as, and that's not what's happening. So neighbors are getting irritated, and one of the things we talked about is in the smaller lots, with 0 lot lines or just a smaller front yard, if you put that in the driveway, you block visibility for the neighbors, you've killed the turkey kill for the neighbors, and you now have to put your cars on the streets in front of your neighbors and your house, so it has kind of a domino effect. So what we don't want to do is put it out there too long, but I do understand that there's cases that may need longer than 48 hours, so.
I agree with you 100%. I think 14 days is a lot better to allow people who, if they're moving a household, sometimes it takes more than 2 days to, especially when they're working, to get it out.
Well, and then too, we talked about the contractors that say they're going to be out there by this date, and they don't show up for a week later. Speak of things like that.
So do we want to bet 10 days, or want to look at 14 days?
We can always revisit it.
Well, and that's why today, just to remind you again, today is for discussion, there's no action, so if y'all will, just make some notes, if there's something you don't like, bring it to everybody's attention, and then we can readdress that, before it's actually voted on.
I may feel better tomorrow.
Yeah.
The temporary dumpsters they bring out there for, I've had 7, I think, been there a year.
To do the remodeling of homes? Construction sites have a permit for 2 years. Be it a remodeling permit, if it's the building permit, you have a 2-year expiration on it. Now, if they're not emptying it, obviously we can address that from a building code and a code enforcement standpoint. But If they are working, then yeah, you have a 2-year permit on this property.
Can we change that?
You can change anything you want. Make a motion, somebody seconds it, and we'll
I mean,
vote tonight.
we can certainly look back at all
Yeah, we're
permits
all
are good for 2 years.
I think 6 months is good. They're deadline something.
Well, this would be for commercial too. I mean, I haven't seen one any lower than 1 year. I mean, we can certainly look at 1 year, we can look at 1.5 years. It is a 2-year standing right now, and I'll be honest, it has killed us on a couple of projects that we really needed to finish up, that we were irritated with. One happens to be in Dorchester 51, that's still under construction. The good news is their 2 years have finally expired, and now we force their hand and they're coming back. But it would have some benefit to it, but we'd have to look a little bit further and see if there's any cons on that.
I'd like to see us just in a year.
Something that you want.
All right, I'll look into that and have some better information when I come back.
Okay, can we move, other than that, back to the other one, on the 14 days, already, for today, okay? All right, we'll go, let's move on, please.
The next one is just, it's in our general fines and punishment area of the zoning ordinance, which addresses a lot of the code violations. Right now, a lot of those code violations do not carry a lot of teeth when it comes to fines, and there is no jail time at all. So you have some offenders that do not take it seriously. What we want to do is to add into the actual conversation that you can have up to 30 days in jail time on any of those violations. Won't happen very often, but there are a couple, there's a handful that just do not, the fines aren't enough to make them quit doing it, or they know they're not going to go to jail, so they're sitting out there just not abiding by the rules, and we just need a little bit more teeth. So the suggestion was to add that possibility in very rare cases, but nonetheless, it would be there if we need it.
Anybody got anything else on that? Okay.
Next one, similar, our code enforcement office helps the city clerk's office when it comes to business license renewals and ones that are running their businesses without business licenses. If we come on to a property and realize they don't have their license, right now, it is the tax and 50% of the amount owed. Our business licenses are not that expensive at all. So it's easier for them to just run their business illegally and just pay the fines each time. So again, there's not a whole lot of teeth there. So we want to put in their fines not to exceed $500. We figure $500. If you keep doing it, obviously we wouldn't do that first time, but $500 is going to get your attention a little bit more than $25, which is where we sit now. And again, this would be those rare cases that somebody just does not want to abide by the rules. It could be up to. I would. The first one would probably be your minimums, and if they saw the person kept coming, and we've all seen those people that just refuse to. So it's a way to get their attention.
We actually have real examples, I'm not gonna quote,
Yes.
but we have real examples of people that are, refuse, they'll go to court, and they refuse to do it because they just pay it. They're like someone that's doing a business out of their home, and they're in violation, so we go write them a citation, and then they pay the cost, but they never change anything. Because it's more cost effective for them to keep breaking the rules because they're making a profit. And so this will stop that.
Right.
Or
Put
discourage.
us up here. Give us a little bit more teeth.
And Alderman Hoops, you know one.
Look good?
And this, for the people that contact you and contact me about this one, that's what it's for right there.
I think it's good.
Okay, everybody okay with that for tonight, or anything, other discussion tonight about that? Okay.
Property maintenance was the next section. On the exterior structure surfaces, it has become an issue in some of the areas where people are using materials that are not supposed to be used for finish outs of exterior homes, and they're using them as permanent fixtures to close off exteriors of their home, tarps, plywood, things like that would never be approved as part of permanent structure. At the end of that paragraph for surface structure, or exterior surface structures, we want to put use of any tarp, plywood, or any other unfinished materials as a permanent solution on the exterior of the structure. If you need it temporarily and show us that you're working with a contractor who's trying to finish out a bonus room or a garage or to close it, that's one thing. But if you just put up 2 tarps to close in your carport, that's another thing. Right now, the tarps for the roof are not allowed, but it doesn't go into detail about carports and additions and sunroofs and,
They
sunroofs.
are
and-
allowed. Tarps for a roof are allowed right now.
If,
Temporary,
you can
that's-
show, yes,
that's
if it's temporary and you can show us that, you've got somebody in the works to fix it. If it's for repair, that's one thing. If you're using it because you just intend to have a blue roof at that point in time, it's not okay. So that was the addition there.
Is there a time limit on how long they have to get that done?
It depends, I don't remember what.
For roofs, it
timeline.
does,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
that's
roofs.
addressed in a different section. This is
60
just,
days.
this is not to deal with roofs, this is like for walls. This whole section is dealing with, it starts out with exterior structure surfaces, which it's dealing with walls, not roofs. So roofs is a different issue.
And this shouldn't be a
is-
correction for time, this is not a correction for repair, this is, there's no repair to be done, you just
Yeah.
wanna use it as a wall. You
Yeah.
just take it down immediately. So. But that's out.
Is duct tape okay?
No. Thank you for asking, clarifying that.
Okay, any other discussion on that one? All right, let's move with,
Okay, the last ones you see, we can kind of lump them all together. They look like they're a lot, but it's just because the conditional use requirement for reader board was in a lot of places in the ordinance. What we want to do is take out the conditional use requirement to have a reader board on your sign. Debbie in my office does the administration part of the permit, so she can monitor and make sure it's done correctly. What we want to do is take out that requirement, so they don't have to come to the board. It will be done administratively. And also with all the new technologies, especially with the churches, we've heard a lot that we would like to use it is a video board, not just for wording. We want video on it. We want full color. Technology is a lot better when this ordinance came into effect. So we want to remove the the requirement that it can only be white lettering. It has to be 8 inch. It can only be words. It can't be pictures. We want to just let them use the technology. And that's basically what it's covering here. And the only other change is in the agricultural district. We had not allowed at all, but we want to allow those for public assembly places where advertising is needed. So that would cover your schools, your churches, things like that, where, a lot of the reader boards have come to play. So that's just the rest of these kind of lumped together. Obviously, if you got any questions, all of that does.
okay, any other discussion about those tonight? Okay, and we'll move right into the planning agenda, if you'll go ahead with that.
All right, 2 items on the agenda. The first one is application for conditional use permit for full service spa at 5960 Getville Road, Suites 102 and 103. This is going to be in the mixed use building right there on the southeast corner for the Chop House, Lost Pieces. There was an existing hair salon and full service spa that went out of business, but the conditional use permit had expired. So the request is to renew that conditional use permit. It does meet the half-mile radius from existing establishments. The closest one that we've approved is in Silo Square, which is 3,513 linear feet away. So we're requesting approval of a 1-year conditional use permit with a 4-year extension to be renewed annually.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item number 1 on the planning agenda as presented tonight.
Second.
We have a motion on item 1 by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Taylor.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries.
All right, our second one is also a conditional use permit, request to open a barber shop at 579 Goodman Road, Suite 8. This is going to be on the southeast corner of Goodman Road, Elmore Road, in the multi-tenant building that's already there. Again, we have done a window survey. It was no closer than a half mile from an existing establishment. I think the closest one was over 4,000 linear feet away. So that would have been Pace Barber Shop. The second one would have been Sports Clip, which is all the way South Crest Parkway. Definitely meets the distance rule. So we're asking for a 1-year conditional use permit with a 4-year extension to be renewed annually.
Mayor, make a motion that we approve item number 2 on the planning agenda as presented tonight.
We have a motion on item 2 by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
Alderman
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is our mayor's report. Just want to update you on a few things fairly quickly tonight. Again, the Springfest logo, as Whitney discussed with the change order, that's the centerpiece of the new landscape parking lot. And they stamped it today with the new Springfest logo. Then they'll come in after it dries and they'll color it. But it's going to be really cool. It's the official Springfest logo, so it'll be right there in the center. And that's the last piece to that project, and then that project will be done. So it was actually completed earlier in the year with the exception of this. And there's a few little landscaping touch-ups that have to be done, then it will be done. So whenever we have, hopefully things will be back to normal next year with Springfest, and everyone will get to enjoy that for the first time in the city's history. We did talk about having a fall Springfest. Christy Faulkner looked into that in detail. The calendar is unbelievably tight, especially with the COVID cancellations in the spring. The two barbecue sanctioning organizations have a full calendar in the fall as well. Obviously, you wouldn't have it, past October because of weather. So we checked all the September and October dates, and we just couldn't get it to work. So we just felt like it's better just to wait and get going again next year. Street resurfacing is underway in our city. As we talked about, we got a head start on that. A lot of the street resurfacing in the next budget year is done in the spring. It's usually done March, April, and May. We started earlier this year, so that is underway. There's a lot of patching going on now. So if you have citizens asking you, why are you just patching my street and not resurfacing it, they have to patch it first, the compromised areas. Then after that, if it has curb and gutter, it'll be milled, and then it'll be finally, the crews will come in and overlay with new asphalt. That's done in 3 different phases, so if you see streets that are like that, and you're wondering if it's going to be resurfaced, if you see a heavy patching, that means it is going to be resurfaced. So those are underway, making good progress with that, and we have an agreement with Lehman Roberts that they'll complete this in 75 days. So we're hoping that we'll get all the streets done by the first part of November. So, but making good progress right now. As Dan mentioned to you earlier, the artificial turf at Greenbrook and Studgrove Park, that project is moving quickly. They have really been making serious progress there. They've dug up the infields, then they're coming in and put the drainage in, then they're putting, the rock in, and then they'll tie it up with the borders, and then eventually you'll have the actual turf on being applied. So you'll actually, within the next 30 to 45 days, you'll see some fields are done. So you'll see something that, somebody says, hey, I want to look at it, see what it looks like. All of them won't be done, but at least there'll be some where they can go lay eyes on it, kind of check it out and see what it's going to look like. So that is heavily underway, making great progress there. Going to be a big deal for the city. And then, as we talked about, big time business decision. Whether you like real playing surfaces, artificial turf. The reason it was done is simply due to economics. It stops the rainouts, it cuts down on maintenance, so it's from a financial standpoint, it's an easy decision for the city. So happy that that's moving along well. We did have one issue, just a little minor thing to let you know about. We the dirt color in the turf. Turf has built popularity over the last several years. When it first came out, a lot of people only had one dirt color. I like that one. It's more of a red color. But as time has gone on, a lot of more stadiums, both college and professional and amateur, have gone to turf. So the manufacturers have come out with different dirt colors to make it more real. So we did some surveys. Met with a lot of baseball and softball teams that use our fields, and we chose to go with a more modern dirt color that's more of a true dirt color. It's kind of like, it's called clay, but it looks like, if you just looked at it like you drove in the park, it looks more like the real dirt color in Mississippi that's there now. So if anybody asked you, we did consider the rust, which is that old red color. Love that look too, but we decided to go with clay. So there is another color that's a dark brown that is used in some colleges have used that as well. But again, we just felt like this color was more like Mississippi real dirt. So anyone asked you about that, there was more than a little bit of thought that went into that. We took a few road trips, Wes and I, and Josh we spent one Friday driving all over the state. But anyway, we feel like it's going to be beautiful. So, it's when you walk up on it, you can talk about it, but when you walk up on an artificial playing surface, that's one of the good things about it. It's going to jump out at you how vibrant it is. The grass is so green, and on the baseball park, the infields are grass, so it's going to have the cut dike, the grooves where it looks like it's freshly cut. So it's really beautiful. So we feel pretty excited. Everybody's going to love that. I think I mentioned last board meeting that we did start the Central to Snowden Trail. That's a 9-year-old project, but it is underway. And again, speaking of making great progress, they are kicking tail. I mean, they are really, they're building that thing in a hurry. So next time you get a chance, take a ride down to Lahoma and check out how much progress is made there. And Dan, I didn't ask you, Dan, that by year end that'll be done, or January?
Maybe
You say year end.
I'm sorry, that may be a little aggressive.
Oh, I was thinking it was year end. What are we looking at? What do you think?
I'm thinking spring, early summer, it should be finished.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be done with February, guys. Anyway, it's going to happen soon. It's going to be awesome, but they are making great progress.
We can't renew his contract.
That's right. That's right. And just in general, again, y'all may remember in January, I told y'all this was going to be the action on the ground year. Things that we've worked on, this board's worked on, we've talked about for years. This is the year that many things have become a reality. So it's been kind of fun to watch. And economically, we're having Silas Square is rocking and rolling too. I mean, the development there, for those, when we talked about the bridge that said we're building a bridge to nowhere, I would ask them to ride out there now and tell me if it's a bridge to nowhere. There are so many, you got businesses already at Silo, you got people living in the loft apartments already, you got the homes that are built, like the homes that are towards Tullahoma are the bigger houses, and then just on the other side of the berm, by the dog park, those are the cottage-type homes that are smaller, that are closer to the square. So I would encourage everyone, if you haven't done it lately, take a ride through Silo Square. It is amazing. So we've got that going. The dirt is already being moved for Google on Airways. So you take a ride down Airways, you can see where they're moving dirt. So they're just and then not to mention Medline. If you haven't been on the interstate, just north of Star Landing, you'll see the biggest building. I guess it's probably the biggest building in probably DeSoto. I mean, maybe not DeSoto County, but at least Southaven is huge. It's over 1 million square feet. It's monstrous. One of the best companies, global companies in the world, bringing about 450 new jobs. But all that's under construction. The Spectre Labs project that we talked about last year is done. That's on State Line. That building is complete, and I think they do have employees in there now. But anyway, it's been a great, other than the obvious things that have been bad in our world this year, from a city perspective, we've had a lot of things to be thankful for. It's been a really good year. And that's all I have. Anybody got any questions for me about anything? Okay, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is our citizens agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Please come forward to the podium.
I'm Brenda Tweed. I live in Colonial Hills.
Would you say your name again?
Brenda Tweed.
Okay.
I live in Colonial Hills on Custer Drive. My issue, I'm glad y'all talked about garbage cans and trash, because that's what my issue is. Our trash gets picked up, the curbside part, like limbs and debris, whenever they decide to pick it up. They will drive right by it and leave it, and then pick up another house down the street. My trash is at my curb stayed for 3.5 weeks.
Now, are you talking about garbage or are you talking about rubbish?
Rubbish,
Oh,
rubbish. Like
Not your
limbs.
garbage cart, but you're talking about
Right.
rubbish, right?
And they will drive by and look at it, the truck picks it up and just keep going and go pick up down the street, 2010.
What is your address?
1877 Custer.
Bradley, would you write that down?
Yes, sir.
We will get that corrected immediately for you.
I was gonna show you what happened today. I called Public Works. Yesterday evening. They came and picked up my trash.
Did you make that?
Yes.
That's impressive.
This is how my so long it killed my grass. There are 3 houses within my block, right across the street, that have rubbish in there for 2 weeks. When they picked up my trash today, they drove right by this house and left the trash. I mean, it makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. That's unacceptable. We're gonna, you have my promise that that will be fixed, or else I'll be having a meeting with the board to make some, we'll make some serious changes. Bradley, I know Bradley's our Public Works Director. He has spoken with our contractor, because we've had some other calls as well, similar to yours. And we've communicated that we're tired of making calls like this, that we expect them to do it. And, but you have my promise that I will get that corrected. And then if it happens again, the lady sitting behind you to your left, that's Christy Faulkner. She's my assistant. And would you let her give you her contact information? And if it happens again, I want you to contact my office directly, and I promise we'll get that corrected that day.
Okay, and in regards to the houses that aren't picked up, can you make sure somebody comes?
We're gonna get, those are obviously on Custer's. That looks like it's on the Hope Sullivan side of the street. Yeah, yeah, I recognize those houses. I will get those, we'll get those taken care of too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please come forward.
I'm a believer, and I live in Highland Road, subdivision of Senior, and our residents have an issue with ATVs. So we have several, whatever reason, ATVs that drive in our neighborhood and up and down.
On the street, public street?
On the sidewalk in our neighborhood, and there's like an empty lot that's like on the right side of Senior, where they just drive them down there. I mean, it's a concern that our major concern in the neighborhood.
Okay.
We got permission from the city to add no ATV signs, so we purchased the sign, so we put them up. But we're also told to put the ordinance on the sign. So we did that as well. We left messages with our ward representative, no response.
I'm sorry, who'd you leave a message?
What do you mean?
And as well as we call dispatch a lot, and we know that's becoming a burden to them, which is what we're trying to prevent, and actually, the goal is to do something before someone gets hurt.
Sure.
So, I guess I'm not sure, the ordinance number that we were given was section 10-96. And we've been trying to, stop the people who, we can't actually physically do anything to them, we just talk to police. But nothing's being done.
Is there a specific time around?
Mostly around, I've been told, some neighbors around 11, 12, they're between 3 and 4.
Like is this during the day or during on weekends?
But this is all week. So, I mean, we call at least twice a week. But our home association president, he's like, well, I'm getting tired of calling because, nothing, we don't see that anything's being done. We did have an officer come out and tell he was able to catch one of them. And he said, told them to take it home. But we don't understand why a ticket wasn't written. Does this ordinance, is it really an ordinance that we can enforce?
If it's an ordinance, it can be enforced.
But, we're still dealing with it.
Okay.
Every year. It's every year.
We'll, if you will let us investigate that, we will change that. We will. Thank you so much. And then would you also, ma'am, Christy, would you take contact information? We can respond back to you just to give you some follow-up. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Anyone else want to speak tonight? What about some of our Cub Scouts? Y'all got anything y'all want to talk about? All right, we'll move on. Next on our agenda is our personnel docket.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the personnel documents presented on the state. Thank you.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Yes.
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 That motion carries. Next on the agenda is our city attorney's legal update. Mr. Nick Manley.
A couple items. First, this came in late this afternoon. It's authorization for the mayor or Chris Wilson to sign the reimbursement from the FEMA or the state regarding reimbursement for COVID-related expenses. The money's been approved and applied for and approved. It's authorization to receive that money, so authorization for Chris or the mayor to sign that.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Alderman Gallagher, second from Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Next item is I sent an email about the contract for fire station number 5 that's being done for the design with A2H. At this point, they are getting the geotech organized, or geotech engaged to do the geotech services. So this juncture, authorization of the mayor to sign that contract amendment with A2H for the geotech services associated with fire station number 5.
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Payne, second from Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is our utility bill adjustment docket.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the utility bill leak adjustment docket as presented on the state.
We have a motion from Alderman Payne, second from Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hicks.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler. Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda are 2 claims dockets. Is there a motion to approve docket 1?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve docket number 1 in the amount of $2,848,870.01, including claim checks.
Second.
On docket 1, we have a motion from Alderman Payne, second from Alderman Flores. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Hicks.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler. Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. Is there a motion to approve docket 2?
I move we approve docket number 2 in the amount of $15,909.06.
Second.
On docket 2, we have a motion from Alderman Payne, second from Alderman Flores. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler. Alderman Flores.
Yes.
That motion carries. What'd you say, I'm sorry? Next on the agenda is the purpose of determining the need for executive session.
I'll make that motion.
The motion from Alderman Gallagher, second from Alderman Brooks. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. The need this evening, claims and litigation against the Southaven Police Department and city in general, possible sale of city property, economic development, personnel and fire department, and general personnel. Is there a motion to declare executive session?
So,
Second.
Got a motion from Alderman Gallagher, second from Alderman Payne. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. The mayor and board will now enter executive session.
Yeah.